we've been hearing over the last couple of weeks that within the equity space, banks are specifically switching to industrial stocks. What's your view on the industrial stock space as a whole, given, as I was saying earlier, we've got bank earnings reports looming as well?
Thank you very much, Alishia. It's always a pleasure. Well, notably, just as you noted there, basically, we've been seeing a lot of activity in terms of the industrial front, though just as you observed, you're seeing a bit of demand coming in terms of the financials, basically because most buyers are taking positions, especially in anticipation of end-of-year positive performance. But looking at it in terms of the industrials, we are seeing Kenya Power and Lighting shooting up significantly, at the River Mining and some of these other cement farms beginning to be very active on the market. And the demand on that front, even looking at counters like East African breweries, which had dipped significantly, is now reversing.
Well, looking at KPLC specifically, we've got some problems possibly sitting on the horizon with some of its workers threatening to go on strike, 8,000 employees, in fact. What are you making of that news, and just how much of a concern is it for you right now?
Well, looking at it in terms of the employee strike, well, in terms of the market, as at now, the view of most of the people is that the employees seem to have a concern in terms of how Kenya Power and Lighting has been performing and how it has been remunerating its employees. And looking at it in the sense that they're just about to announce the end-of-year results, is already beginning to preempt an indication that Kenya Power and Lighting is doing exemplarily well. And because of that, we're seeing a lot of demand on the stock.
Demand for now. What would it mean for future implications? Because this would mean a rise in their cost base at some level when it comes to labor costs specifically.
Well, over the short run, just as we've just noted, yes, we are seeing a bit of a demand because investors are beginning to see that there's some bit of value in terms of the performance of the stock in the short run. But looking at it in terms of the long run, employee unrest definitely affects the performance of a stock. Looking at Kenya Airways in particular, how much they lost because of a very brief employee unrest, that is definitely going to affect the bottom line of Kenya Power and Lighting. And looking at it in terms of the operational costs, definitely that would be one of the things that might undercut on their bottom line.
Certainly something we'll have to be keeping an eye on moving forward. In the meantime, Kenya's, we know, invited bids for the first phase of construction of a new port along the coast of Lamu, involving the building of 3 berths, and this is part of a proposed $22 billion development plan. Let's look at the potential benefactors here, because some cement players really stand out as the obvious ones.
Oh yes, that's a very good observation there. We're looking at it in terms of the port. Kenya has been very, very strategically positioned in terms of the region, especially looking at some of the key countries that are still landlocked, Rwanda, looking at Uganda, and the position that we are as at now in terms of developing our ports is going to really create a lot of potential opportunities for our industry, especially in terms of the availability of raw materials, as well as being a channeling point for distribution of goods.
Amongst the cement players specifically, we've had East African Portland Cement starting to process the recruiting of a new chief executive for the helm, a part of a reorganization program that's underway at the company. How are you rating East African Portland Cement at the moment? Because it seems to always stand in the shadows of Athi River and Bamburi.
Well, looking at East African Portland Cement, yes, definitely it's been one of the stocks which have been, first of all, subdued in terms of the activity in the market. We've been seeing reduced activity, the share price keeping on fluctuating in terms of stability of performance, and even looking at it in terms of demand-supply imbalance has been very, very significant. And the performance of the stock, well, it has been a bit lackluster in terms of how comparing it together with the other industry players. And we seem to see a lack of invigoration or energy in terms of how it performs. And as of now, I guess it's a welcome move to see a bit of change, because maybe hopefully you're going to see them being more active in terms of their performance in the market.
Of course, the ministry said the berths that are being constructed will be expected to handle container ships with greater capacities. Let's explore some of the implications on trade, Samuel, as you see it moving forward. Of course, this is more of a longer term implication of this new development, as opposed to the kind of short-term benefits that cement players would derive.
Yes, definitely looking at especially the development that you're seeing in terms of the infrastructural growth in the local region as well as in the country. This is a very welcome move. And though the concern as that now maybe would be how much it will be able to challenge the position of some of these the industrial players, and because of that maybe welcoming the change may be a bit of a challenge. But looking at it in terms of the opportunity and the capacity that you're going to grow as a result of that, definitely that's a very welcome move, and hopefully you're going to see them being able to adjust and realign so that they can be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are going to arise as a result of coming up with more developed capacity in terms of the port.